The campaign for presidential election has entered the final week. Candidates are making final touches in their charm offensive across the nation as they seek the mandate to lead. In just 7 days, Ugandans will go to the polls to choose their leaders for the next 5 years. But the campaign amidst the pandemic is not like any other. Reaching the voters has been a Herculean task because of the requirement to follow SOPs. Tonight we speak to a senior citizen, former member of parliament, and former inspector general of government, the Honorable Augustine Ruzindana. Honorable Augustine Ruzindana, thank you so much for having honored our invitation. To begin with, Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year to you. And Happy New Year to the listeners and viewers.
We're just 7 days away for Ugandans to go to the polls. In the trail of this campaign, Honorable Augustine Ruzindana, we have seen death and destruction, blood on the streets of Kampala. Isn't the credibility of this election already questionable, even before Ugandans cast their ballots?
I have participated in quite a number of elections, about 5 of them directly. But I have also witnessed all the elections from pre-independence. The two from, I wasn't a voter then, but I know my people at home voted in the 2 elections. I saw the Shenjero one of Ankole, 63. I was in senior 3 then. I knew what was happening. And then the next ones were 1980. I was a voter then. And then the subsequent ones that have come. Now, this particular election is quite unique. There are many things that I have seen that I have not seen in the other elections, for example. The role of the Electoral Commission is quite muted since they nominated the candidates. The major players we see are the candidates themselves, and then security agencies, and quite often violent interaction between the candidates and the security agencies themselves. Then the Electoral Commission once in a while has called candidates to appear. And yet I recall that every candidate has an official agent appointed, and the Electoral Commission knows that official agent who can represent the candidate at any time.
In those meetings?
In meetings, and even take undertakings on behalf of the candidate.
Okay.
And I have seen. Then the role of the security agencies quite often has been a bit of a problem to understand. A candidate is supposed to have arrangements with their own agents and supporters wherever they are going. But quite often you see on TVs that the security agencies are saying, no, you must go here. I often wonder whether that is the place organized by the agents of the candidate, or how these things are decided, and so on. And then a lot of these things have led to arrests, and then arrests and violence. So the environment of these elections is something I have not seen.
So in other words, arrests and violence, and before I even ask the question, there was death and destruction, the blood on the streets of Kampala. As we go on January 14th to cast our votes, isn't that, clear that the credibility is already questionable?
The issue of death does not only concern the elections. It concerns the consensus between the NRM and the people. The people have got used to the fact that the security agencies, the army, the police don't kill. They don't kill citizens, they don't kill civilians. This has been violated. It's irrespective of whether there are elections or not, outside armed conflict, this should not happen. And
so what you're saying, Honorable Ruzindana, that there's an element of impunity that is creeping up?
It is not impunity, it is an element of legitimacy. The consensus between the rulers and the people seems to have been violated. And this is something that has got to be recreated, irrespective of the outcome of the elections, that this consensus, because the difference between the NRM, the NRA, you see, the NRA is the one which was there before the NRM, it formed the NRM. And the cardinal thing was that the army and the people are like fish and water. And now the fish and the water seems to have been destabilized by what has happened in the killing. So irrespective of the elections, there is a taboo. There is a taboo that has been violated.
I find that very hard to understand, Honorable Ruzindana, because now in the military, now in the police, we have some of those men and women who are highly educated, highly trained, have attended some of the best military academies here and in the world. They should be knowing better than in the past when there was consensus.
No, certain things happen. We have all seen what happened yesterday in Washington. The security people were there, and they seemed to allow the insurrection to take place. And they were posing for selfies with some of them and so on. These are highly trained people. So the training is not, it is the environment.
So how do we bring...
It is the orders which these people are given. How come that these rioters did come? And it is also the same. It's not the education and the training and so on. It is the analysis of an environment that leads to certain orders to be given.
So how do we bring back that consensus? How do we restore trust and credibility to the entire process?
That now is post-election. Post-election, irrespective of the outcome, there must be a consensus again between the ruled and the rulers about the trust of institutions. You see, this brings a problem about the trust of institutions. Institutions must be trusted. Institutions must be respected. And that means there must be rules operating and governing all of them. And so, of course, I have advocated for a national dialogue for quite a long time. But the things that are happening during these elections and so on actually eventually call for a get-together of the people of this country and a new You see,
but
I was a member
examples have shown us.
I was a member of the CA.
Okay.
Part of the CA was producing a constitution, but also creating an environment of consensus in this country. When we were in the CA, we promised the country that for the first time, there is going to be a peaceful handover of from one leader to another. This has never happened. And this has become a grievance hanging in the country, and it has got to be resolved sometime. This is one issue that has...
Yeah, but that could have happened if the constitution had not been mutilated beyond recognition.
Yes, the mutilations that have happened and so on have accumulated. But also now, these things that have happened now, that in an election, in a peaceful time, the armed forces have killed civilians. The number is quite large. If officially it is 50, the unofficial one, I don't know. It must be much larger than that. But the fact of that alone is a violation of the consensus between, in other words, the legitimacy. You see, the violation, for example, some of us disagreed on the removal of term limits and so on. That having been done, the consensus of trust of institutions and their behavior did persist. And so one could move on and a new consensus is created. But now things are piling up.
So you're suggesting that maybe past the election we can sit together and again look into these things. But you know, as much as I do, that after every election, the emotions, people are highly, emotionally charged, and people are going to court, and some people are arrested. Can we really, after the election, especially when people are bitter, and be able to sit around the table and talk about issues that concern Uganda? I know there was a program and a plan to have a national conference, which you support, that should have happened in 2020. But because of the coronavirus, that never happened. So do you think it can be immediately after, or a year or 2 years after?
No, don't worry about the timing. You see, there is a threat to the stability of the country. Every one of us has got a stake in the stability of the country. Everything depends on the stability of the country. And the ingredients of instability now are quite there, and they can be seen by everybody. For example, in the election environment, you have got participants in the elections who have got only one possible outcome, and that is winning. Now, there can't be one winner, but there are more than one participant with that program of just winning. That's quite an ingredient of instability, because obviously not more than one will win, and that is quite a serious.
One of the things I've heard.
The other ingredient, there is no time the young people have been mobilized like they are now. And the emotions you are talking about, young people are quite emotional. It is good that young people are now active. If you have a child and you see the child is not active and so on, you get worried.
You get concerned.
So we parents, grandparents, should be worried if our young people are not active. Now they are active. They are hyperactive. Quite often in ways that have no direction. And that is quite a recipe for disaster. And so it's good. Young people have been mobilized. Yes, but to what end? Yes, in the mobilization, are the mobilizers strong enough to handle, for example, an outcome of which is not victory? It is much more difficult to handle failure.
Yeah, but because that is going to be difficult, because people think that the ground is not leveled, that if we're going to lose, we're going to lose because we have been cheated, the ground is not leveled. And so, for example, if you're talking about the military and the police, and some are saying we have been harassed by these men and women in uniform who are supposed to be helping and guiding. So with that background, of course, they are likely to say, no, wait a minute.
Every participant in these elections went in knowing that the ground is not level. All the parties that are not in government compete with the state. They don't compete with the political party. They don't compete with the candidate. They compete with the president. So they know the ground is not level.
Yeah, but they shouldn't be competing with the state infrastructure. They should be competing with the party.
That was the formula there before they took part. So that is given. And it is the environment in which they are working. And they went in knowing what is against them and what is not against them. They know the resources they have are not commensurate to the resources of the state. And so that one, the ground.
But what you are saying is that the state and the party, especially the incumbent party and the state, are so fused into each other that perhaps you cannot even make a difference.
When the multi-party system was allowed to function, there was no delinking of the ruling party from the state. The ruling party remained fused with the state. The structure of the ruling party is the LC1, which is a structure of local government, and all the others I don't have to go into. So this is known and this is given. So when you come as a candidate, you know you are coming in that environment. So you can't complain that the ground was not level. You knew. You knew, but
you have to swim from the deep end.
So you also thought you would organize in such a way that you would deal with the disadvantages which are there. And so that one is given.
So
when young people come into competition like this one, you know they have disadvantages. They are not known. Their financial capacity is very limited, and so on. But they have vigor. They can work hard and overcome the incapacity of money, the incapacity of not being well known, and so on. So that one is there. But the ingredient that comes, for example, that the advantages of incumbency are used excessively, that becomes a problem. That becomes a problem. And that is where you see, for example, the excessive use of force. Once the security agencies are there, you expect there is some amount of force, but not excessive to the point of killing people. No. To the point of constraining candidates in such a way that actually they cannot, they can't move.
So which also reminds me, you are at one time a senior member of the NRM party. You served in government as an ombudsman. You were a member.
Not only that, my mandate for 10 years included the protection of human rights.
Yes, but now, how did we get here?
You see, the development of a country is incremental. And all of us have hoped that in the process of the development of the country, the democratic processes would be getting better and improving and so on. And for example, these disadvantages which face new entrants into the playing field would be getting less and less rather than getting amplified. But over time, they are actually getting amplified. And this is the problem.
If the development of democracy is supposed to be incremental, which I want to agree with you, what we're seeing in Uganda is some kind of democratic reversals.
Usually it is one step forward, two steps backward, two steps forward, and so on, step and so on. But there must be some movement forward eventually, not all the time backward. So here, I think part of the problem I see, the official side has made the wrong analysis of the unofficial side. I think there is thinking that the unofficial side, because of the awakening of young people, is actually much stronger than it is. And therefore, the counter force has tended to be more excessive because of that analysis. That's my impression. And I think if they reviewed their analysis, the excessive force could be reduced. Because the excessive force...
So the people handling the affairs of the country now seem to be in a panic mode?
Quite often you can think so. Because there are certain things which are done and you cannot understand. Because let's say the killings that were made, you had an assessment that they were premeditated, yet they were sparked off by an arrest. How could they be premeditated unless they could have forecast the arrest? Two, if they were premeditated, how come the state, because the state has intelligence, many intelligence agencies, did not nip them in the bud before the eruption of what happened?
You know,
so this is unless you can admit that there was an intelligence failure. That's where
well, in this election, this time around, are you as a senior citizen, what concerns you? What worries you?
What worries me is the threat to stability of the country. What worries me is that the way things are being conducted, there is a threat to the stability of the country. And that worries me a great deal. And I see no answers to that, because the extremes that are taking place actually will fuel. If you put people against the wall, they resist. And then you also come with greater force and so on. And that is, and the reputation of the country, the investors we talk about and so on, all these become quite a problem.
Okay.
And so the disease that we have now, the COVID program, it has come in. It has been a disaster to very many people, to very many sections of the people. And because of the things that are happening, you can't see solutions that lead to solving the problems of the individuals that have been affected by the COVID situation. The emphasis is on the SOPs. Yes, but people's lives have been destabilized. What is there to deal with the destabilization of the...
You have to protect lives and livelihoods.
Yes.
Honorable Augustine Ruzindana, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'll be asking if there's a threat to the stability, how do we make sure we avoid that threat, or maybe try to reduce on the tension that we could be facing as a country right now? We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight is Honorable Augustine Ruzindana, and we're assessing the election process that we are going in the next 7 days. Ugandans are going to polls. And you said what worries you and what concerns you is the likelihood that we could have some elements of instability. How do we stop that?
Well, I had suggested that there is a need for all the players to talk. Now, the way matters are being conducted during the elections, they are being conducted in such a way that bringing these people and others, even civil society, I've seen the civil society people being arrested also, their accounts being blocked for many reasons and so on. So there is a need. There is a breakdown of the trust in the public institutions. That must be recreated. And it's not only public institutions, even leading personalities in the country and so on. The respect that should be given to people and officers and so on is quite problematic.
But you see, when you talk about leading personalities, I remember back in the day when people like yourself were in government, you know, you could offer some kind of advice and guidance, people like the Honorable Mushega, people like Dr. Matembe, people like Kazora. And yes, but you have been replaced by other people who have different, you know, expertise and qualities, but perhaps they are lacking in the institutional memory of the kind of advice that you could bring. I wonder whether the people who are right now seem to be offering the kind of advice should have been the natural replacement of people like you.
We have never removed ourselves from being available to advise. We have always been available to advise. If advice is sought, we definitely, I can talk on my own behalf, but I also interact with my colleagues. I am sure they would also do the same. But there is also a difference. The revolution that has taken place in communication has in a way undermined the authority of leaders. There is a time when, as a leader, you would come from Kampala and go to the villages and so on, and you had something you knew which they did not know, and you could tell them. Now there is hardly anything you know which they don't know. And so the leadership role has got to be recast. And to be recast, the leaders must be seen as embodiments of certain values. And that's where things like corruption come in and so on. If people are in certain places are deemed to be corrupt, there is no corrupt person that is respected.
But when you talk about corruption, and this was at one point you were the Inspector General of Government, the Ombudsman, and it is talked about in the 10-point program of the NRM government, I think number 7 of fighting corruption. But we have so many agencies of government and departments of government, and we see the effort and the intention is there, but graft and the deficit of integrity is getting entrenched the more. So for you, who has been the #1 fighter against corruption, what is it that we haven't done right? Because right now, the politicians who are opposing government, they are raising it as a #1 issue that when they come to government, they have to sort that.
At the time we were dealing with the corruption, the working assumption was that corruption was the exception, not the norm. I think the working assumption now is that corruption is the norm. Now, if it is the norm, you can't fight it. It is because it is systemic. It is part of the blood. So
people like you, people like you, with all respect, slept on the job.
No.
Then why did it become a norm?
No.
How did it become? How did we even get here?
See, corruption is of persons, of systems, and of processes. It's not, there is quite
It's systemic and systematic.
There is quite often people think about corruption of persons, and they go after persons and this, and they even talk of big fish and so on. They don't talk of the systems. They don't talk of the processes. For example, the electoral process. If the electoral process is already corrupted, it's a problem, because you have now to implement a corrupted.
Is that what you believe? The electoral process is
no,
corrupted?
no. I am giving you a system, an assumption. But even our system here, some of us have, over time, tried to educate our brothers and sisters that actually the electoral system we have here of first past the post is unsuitable for this country and many other similar countries.
Mm-hmm.
And the quarrel about monetization and so on, it's because of the electoral system. And there has been no discussion about not even changing, but even modifying the electoral system. And these are some of the things that can be discussed in a national dialogue, because you would have to analyze system by components.
But if we had had that national dialogue, my problem with that is that you have a government that has been in power for 35 years. And most likely the national dialogue is going to put a spotlight on the government and to look at the failures. Are you really going to find an ally in the form of government to accept to talk to you, and yet you are going to find members, the delegates in that conference, pointing out the ills of government? In other words, to sort of conference or have to dialogue yourselves out of power?
No,
you wouldn't have allies.
No, it depends on the formulation of the national dialogue.
But how do you move away from the fact that people will point out the ills, the shortcomings of government, and say, you have failed here, you have failed here, you have failed here. In other words, you need to go.
Look at the dialogue between the apartheid system and those who are opposing it.
But that was, the Truth and Reconciliation, or before?
No, before. During
yeah, but they had already given up.
Even
the apartheid regime had already given up. They had already lost.
Even now.
They saw the tide of change had come to Southern Africa, and the apartheid regime was not going to stand. They already knew.
Yes, and they took the initiative. Now, here, the main player now is the president of this country and the leadership of this country. There is no way those who are on the periphery can impose a dialogue. And they could see, and that's why I'm pointing out, for example, this breakdown of the consensus. The need.
Yeah, but you see, when you use the South African example, when P.W. de Klerk was having a dialogue, it ended with him losing power.
No, but it ended with him and his group actually remaining with the economic power. They still control the economic power. And this is what the whole problem is. So there was a compromise which was in their favor and which was in favor.
So you think we need to have a dialogue, like truth talking about ourselves as a Ugandan family and find...
You see, if you hear things which are being said, you hear maximalist statements of people removing, annihilating the regime and all it stands for and so on. The army and the security agencies are called an occupation, and obviously if they are occupation, the remedy is getting rid of them. And so there is a maximalist problem there. And once in a while, for those who are in power, you actually hear statements of people saying, there is no way we can cede power to anyone else. There are people who come, in other words, it is something which is there, which shouldn't be said, but sometimes which someone in a drunken mood or in another comes up and says. So now these are then you hear threats against this ethnic group or that ethnic group and so on. Then you hear, now all these, you can't dismiss them. You've got to find ways of dealing with these things that come up. So how do you sift them? How do you bring all these extremes and then have a compromise and create something which people agree with, that we are going to have trust in the institutions of state? In the religious institutions, you've had the senior religious leaders defending themselves. How can we poison our members through communion?
Yes, I heard that. But before that,
I mean, no, that means that if there are people feeling that can happen, the trust of those institutions
can happen in a temple, in a house of prayer.
Is quite. So where there are no authoritative leaders, no authoritative people, no, how do you deal with it unless you sit down and say, okay, now we will have authoritative institutions, authoritative leaders, and so on. What do they need to have?
We have people who, I don't know where they have the mandate from, but they are called the Elders Forum. And probably you belong to it.
No, I don't.
You don't. But the Elders Forum, people like those, if are men and women of substance, and because they are senior in their age, should be able around this time to come up and we hear their voice.
The Elders Forum is an offshoot of the interreligious organizations of the major religions. They are the ones who put it in place and so on. And it has not come up with a life of its own, and mainly because of the environment in which we are operating.
There is one thing I think Ugandans, for those who are calling themselves the forces of change, have not been able to do. And the last time I also checked, you are working closely with the Forum for Democratic Change. And it's something called unity. Unity, or working together, has almost become like the holy grail. And yet you need unity, you need cohesion among the forces of change for you to be able to take on this, institutionalized party that is fused with the state, the NRM juggernaut. You're not going to take it on when you are individual, when you are segmented.
That is the problem of the trust of institutions. Even the political parties are institutions. What is the problem of the opposition which has been there? It is not that it does not have capable people. It is not that it does not have an alternative program and so on. No, it is lack of organizational depth. And if you look at what has happened even now, even if the youth have been organized, the business community has not moved. No, the business community has not. And you will find that the alternative leaders and change and so on, they have not lacked.
So tell me which
support.
Businessman in Kampala, even though he felt like he should be moving with those forces of change, would write a check in the bank and take it to, let's say, NUP, and take it to Robert Mao and say, I am supporting you.
That's why I am saying.
Yes.
I am saying that as
but
long
you understand their dilemma?
No, it's not their dilemma. If they knew that there were realistic chances of these people succeeding, they can take some risk. And there would be no problem of funding for all these political parties. There is no reason. why DP cannot get 1,000 people in Kampala and Wakiso that can raise 100,000 shillings per month. It's not impossible, but they are not there. So now, for what I call organizational depth, for success there must be organizational depth. If you are strong only among young people, that is not enough. If you are strong, let's say, among religious people, locally and so on, that's not.
But you see, there are people like you that could inspire Ugandans. At one point, you joined the Forum for Democratic Change, and people would look at people like you, and maybe they have hope that you could even bring in that organizational depth. But somehow you veered off. Somehow,
as chairman,
not only you, but also people like the Honorable Amanya Mushega, who used to be who sat on this chair like 3 weeks ago. People like the Major Kazora, people like Garuga Musinguzi. People like yourselves, you've decided to move away. Now, when you move away, you take away the kind of weight that would have been so useful.
No, that is not the thing. As chairman of PAFU, I was a main player in the formation of FDC. And so I do. But there is and I have interacted with all these political parties, civil society organizations, and so on. But there is quite a problem. You find something, you know, when we started before the elections of 2006, there was fire and there seemed to be realistic chances of success and so on. But that goes with time and the curve goes down. There is a fire now with the new group that has come and so on. But the same structural weaknesses are there. And eventually people give up and say, why should we risk? If there are no realistic chances of success, let us wait and see. And everybody waits and see. But our retirement, I retired in 2012. I am not active in
politics.
Now, the generations can't be bottled up by people who don't move away. If I stayed, you would find there are things which you would keep on. You've seen the place of the social media now. The language of the social media is not something I would participate in. And so imagine if I used to be in charge of policy and so on, and then you are there and you are actually preventing certain things from happening.
Then people need to wake up and smell the coffee that there's a generational shift that is going to happen naturally, that for all those who seem to be in positions of leadership, probably they need to give way to the younger generation. After all, it's the biggest percentage of the demographics are showing us the biggest percentage. They understand today's issues, the technology that is giving us the greatest equalizer. You know, everything is different. Why can't people realize that time has come to have a new set of people to run the affairs of the country? After all, they will understand that country better than them.
My own assessment is that if you are in the same position for about 10 years, plus or minus, I think you should give way, or at least go to something else, but to not remain in the same thing. And if you see the main quarrel with the president, people are saying he has overstayed in the same position. Whether he has not built enough roads or enough schools or enough what, that comes as without analysis, just overstaying. And so we must avoid that. And you've seen the style of Magufuli in Tanzania. It's not the same as his predecessor, but it is the same party. So even a change of person, actually brings a style, and also if there are vices that were creeping in, they get stopped.
Bring a new energy.
And for example, the corruption that has become problematic here is that corruption creates networks. And if there is a long time, the networks just spread and multiply and increase and so on. And the institutions that should be fighting them cannot keep up with the changes that take place in the corruption networks.
If somebody overstayed, in my view, maybe that shouldn't be a big deal, so long as there's service delivery to whatever thing people want. For example, if now young people are saying we have a problem of unemployment, if that is sorted, then maybe that's okay. So long as people can say we shall go to the hospital and you find the medical care that we expect to get, then that shouldn't be a big deal. Because today, if somebody fell sick, God forbid, and you are admitted in a hospital in Kampala, even if you are, let's say, corporate Ugandan, middle class, within 1 week, you will go into real poverty. In the second week, you will sell your land.
Yes.
The third week, you will be a real pauper. All of us seem to be in perpetual vulnerability, even though you think your bank account is good. It's not good enough if you fell sick in Kampala.
The people who are fighting Mugabe are the people he educated. When he came in, he broadened education and so on. And then they finish school, no work. If there is work, payment not good enough. That's about the same here, and so on. So the question of, you see, this question of handing over to someone else. If someone else starts anew, the problems I had, they will not immediately blame them on him. He will start anew and so on. And so the question of the longevity in Germany, Chancellor Kohl was there for 18 years. When he retired, he was saved by immunity as a member of parliament. He had to remain a member of parliament to have immunity. The question of being long in one place creates certain problems.
Okay, Honorable Augustine Ruzindana, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'll open the lines so that you too can be a part of this discussion. You'll see the numbers on the screen. You pick your phone and call us. Please make it very brief, and so that we can have many people to participate in the discussion. So the coming segment is an interactive one where you get to take part. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight is Honorable Augustine Ruzindana. And I just will be opening the line shortly so that you two can be a part of this discussion. Today, I had an opportunity to speak to, now you're the fifth, 4 other senior citizens. They included the former Katikkiro of Buganda, Dan Molika. They included the former Ambassador Harold Achema. They included Dr. Maggie Kigozi, and I think the Honorable Kanyomozi. So now you, and so I've had an opportunity to speak to 5 people with the expertise and a wealth of experience in our country. But what I see is that sense of worry about where we're headed, apart from maybe from one of them, but most of you seem to have that sense of worry. And now I understand people who have means are actually booking flights and going out. I've seen some exchanges on WhatsApp for those who, I don't know whether it's just we are mistaking a business trip or a visit or a tour, but it's true that some people who have means have booked flights out of town.
Yes, that's what I was telling you about the ingredients of instability. And the people are worried about whether elections will lead to a peaceful and stable situation or not. But that has always happened at every election. But all other elections were not as threatening as this one.
But I wonder, having looked at, watched what happened at Capitol Hill in D.C. just last night, you know, when the Citadel, the hallowed temple of democracy in the world is discredited the way it was, and I'm thinking, us who are making baby steps, after all, with our teething problems, only a few years of trying to do this experiment, you know, probably we can understand that these things can happen.
No, this one in Washington is the ingredient that complicated it was that it was actually led by the president. And so that one incapacitated institutions from being as active as they would have been if something is led by the president. How do you handle it? But here, there is a bit of a problem that you see too many active players, and whether they are governed by certain rules of their own organization, of the laws of the country, and so on. That becomes quite a big problem. And two, there is the question of handling expectations that have not been realized. It becomes quite a problem. You saw what sparked off what I consider spontaneous riots here and some other places in Kampala. It was just the mere arrest of a leader. Now, the expectations of success in the elections, when the ingredients of success are missing, and then because the ingredients are not seen by every follower, the leaders must be able to see them and guide people accordingly, and also have the capacity to deal with the outcomes. And this is where I have a problem. I think the capacity to deal with outcomes by leaders is problematic.
I'm going to open the lines so that you two can be a part of this discussion. You're going to see the numbers on the screen. Pick your phone and call.
Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, good evening. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. What's your name and where are you calling from and what is your issue tonight?
This is Acton. I am calling from Soba.
Okay, you're on air, Acton.
Now, you're talking about why a number of people are boarding the planes to run away from Uganda. Now, if we go back to the riots and what happened, I saw the president trying to explain how the 54 people had died. And what he was showing was an NLM person being told to undress, and he was showing some young men who had stopped cars and they were soliciting money from people, and probably somebody who was trying to hit a police person with a hammer. And when you look through all those pictures, you could ask yourself a question: which picture and which video there was warranting anybody to be killed? If, for example, somebody was soliciting money from people and he was stopping cars and taking money from them, does that person deserve to die? Because the only reason why a police person can kill a person in rioting is if his life is threatened and he's trying to protect himself, or if he sees another person's life being threatened and is protecting that person. Now, if you shoot somebody because he has told an NRM person to remove a T-shirt, now, and if at least only those people were killed, but you're talking about 54 people were walking around in the streets shooting spontaneously, somebody just trying to get his camera and putting on camera what is happening, and you see a police person aiming at that person to shoot that person down. And you could see a person walking through the streets, and it was the president showing them, and he's just looking for anybody to shoot whoever could stand in his way. Now, if that could happen on a day when it is only strikes, just imagine what comes out of the election is not accepted by people, and they try to riot, and that at that particular time, the president would be imagining that people want him out. And I believe that a lot of dead bodies might be on the streets. So people must be worried about being here. And for sure, if God does not help us, it might come out ugly.
All right. Thank you very much, Upton. I just want to be on the positive side, on the optimistic side of our country, because we have gone through a lot of upheavals, tumultuous past and all that. But as Uganda, we always pull through, don't we? I know the worries are there. Everybody's worried, I suppose. But I think we should also, together, all of us, including you and I and everyone, be working towards having a peaceful, some kind of election, so that you go to the poll, you cast your vote, yes, protect your vote, and be able to celebrate if you win, but accept the defeat if you lose, because there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. I have a call online. Hello.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yes, good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Ndija Ivan, all the way from Kapeka.
From Kapeka.
Yes. So an election in Uganda, of course, cannot change the presidency. And the only fact is that people in opposition are using it as a chance to rise the masses to overthrow the government, and of which I'm not saying that it can happen in Uganda. So at this case, we have the politicians, especially in opposition, who are trying to show the government in power that they are likely to overthrow the government. And the government is using that chance to maintain their stay in power. So of which I'm saying that an election in Uganda cannot change power. So what we need to pray is have peace, and arrest maybe the government that we feel like they will come at any time.
Okay. Yes. Our caller from Kapeka, you have made your point, sir. Thank you so much. I just want to get other people, in case you have a question to Honorable Augustine Ruzindana, you can ask him. But also, if maybe you disagree with him somewhere, you can disagree honorably. And if you have information to give us, you can also. But how I wish we could debate tonight in an optimistic kind of manner, where we want to maybe think summon our better angels as a country, because we need that. Let me take a call online. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hello?
Yes, good evening, sir.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I am Fedwaji from Rubaga.
Sedwaji in Rubaga, you are on air, sir.
Yes, sir.
Serwaji, unfortunately, we have lost contact with you online to Rubaga. I don't know what happened, and yet you were loud and clear. So I'm going to pick another call. I have a call online. Hello. 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 Okay. Looks like we're having a connection issue there. But Honorable Ruzindana, you can hear some of the views of people, some of their concerns.
Really, they were comments, yes, not questions.
They're not questions, yes.
And the first one was talking about whether the reasons why people were killed were valid or strong reasons or not. I think really what should be done is that there should be an independent investigation of these things. Because as I said, the main thing was that people died, but the death of these people also indicated a fracture of trust between the people and the rulers of the country, and this the trust must be restored, and the avenues for the restoration of this trust, yes, must be found. That is quite important. The other one, the Kapeka Ivan, about whether, no, elections are not about overthrowing. It's about people having an opportunity to express themselves, whether government in place should stay in or another one should come. The issue is whether actually there are conditions for that to happen. And the conditions are not there. That's why there is talk of lack of a level playing field. Of course, a level playing field is not absolutely there anywhere. No, it's not there anywhere. And incumbents do have certain advantages. But there must be rules to deal with those advantages of incumbency, and there are no rules here. There are no rules. In our neighborhood here, there are rules to deal with advantages of incumbency, and those are the things really we need to talk about.
Okay, I'm going to maybe open the lines once more. If I can just have two more callers, whether you have a question or a comment, you can make it, and so that we get to hear your voice, because this is also about you. I have a call online. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
What's your name and where are you calling from?
Jeffrey, calling from Fort Porto.
Geoffrey in Fort Porto, you're on air.
Yeah. Just the elder senior discussing the challenges in the country. In specific, I just want to address and inquire from you. FDC from the beginning was a credible political party in the country that we know that could put the defense to oppose the sitting party. But when you went for these campaigns, okay, for these particular elections, there were a lot of issues unaddressed, a lot of internal wrangles, internal departures, disunity, so many mention it. As a founder, a median founder, did the really FDC deserve to go for these elections? That's why. Have you really sorted internal wrangles to have trust in the party itself so that you can still win the glory of the well-known party we knew that FDC was? Maybe lastly, I will look at it. We know that we still have lack of credibility in our elections. Many times we heard the leaders of the party saying the elections are sham, the elections are not transparent. Why do you go for this?
Okay, thank you very much.
What is the way forward?
Augustine.
Now, I am not in a position to speak for FDC now. I have retired since 2012. And even membership is annual actually. You cannot have a membership for life. You have got to.
Keep renewing.
But there is a question not only just for FDC but for all other parties as to whether their participation is meaningful or not. And I think participation is important. Participation is important for everyone because if you do not participate, and this is where there is a problem even for voters, because there are many voters that don't vote, and after that they complain about how government is performing or certain leaders are performing when they never participated in the selection of those ones. And so for those who are active in the political area, any boycott or suggestions of boycott would be counterproductive. That does not refer to FDC only, but even to other political parties. And that's really the general point that I can make, that participation is important.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I want to thank you so much. Our time is almost out. What's going to be your concluding remark?
My concluding remark is, again, about this participation, which I just talked about. About 2-3 weeks ago, there were elections in Ghana. Ghana has a population slightly more than 30 million, but there were 17 million plus registered voters. Our population is 15 million people more, and we have only 18 million plus voters registered. That means that there are very many eligible voters that are not registered. And so the question of disenfranchisement doesn't arise if you have not bothered to register. Now, of those who register, the turn-up is low. And I suspect the turn-up in this particular election is going to be extremely low. Now, those who have a program of change never takes place when the turn-up is low. Never. And you have seen, for example, in America, that the Biden win, the turn-up was quite very high by their supporters and so on. So everyone who is active politically must at least try and persuade as many people to participate. And I know many people of my type, my type, my class, they don't vote. And you can see it in Kampala. Kampala has more than 1 million voters. Mm-hmm. And the winners as mayor, as women MPs, they don't exceed 300,000 voters. So participation is low.
Okay.
And so we must increase participation in order to have a right to have a voice of criticism, a voice of support, a voice of what. If you are not participating, there is a problem. And finally, for the leaders, there is a problem that increasingly leaders in this country are not respected. They are not respected because they are not conducting themselves in a way that earns respect. Respect is earned. And so those who are in leadership positions, either by age like myself or by being elected or by calling like religious leaders and others, they really must earn the respect of Ugandans. Okay. and the general public.
Okay, I want to thank you so much, Honorable Augustine Ruzindana, for your time. I want to thank you for your insights. I appreciate what you have discussed with us, and I want to thank you, all of you, for having been a part of this discussion.
I think
you have ended with a rallying call for us to go and do our civic duty, our constitutional responsibility, and cast our votes. It's not going to be like an epiphany is going to come all over you. You will have heard from the candidates. You know what they stand for. Maybe you have heard their manifestos. And from that informed position, go and make a choice of a leader that you want to lead you for the next 5 years.
If I may put in a word, I wish everybody a happy and fruitful 2021.
Thank you so much. Happy New Year. Good night and God bless Uganda.